Hey, this is StarCraft 2 History, Part 12. This time I'm going to be talking about two specific players, Seed and MC. And now, Seed is a name most people shouldn't remember because he had only won one GSL and he was only good, as in the best, for about maybe 1-2 months max in the middle of 2012. But God, he was so amazing during those 2 months. So I'm going to talk about his run to the GSL finals, and then I'm going to talk about a historic change to MC and something that basically changes the rest of his career. And in a sense, MC is a bit underrated by, I'd say, everybody, um, because of his ability to win, which is a strange aspect to talk about. But we'll get into that. First, I'll talk about Seed. Now, Seed was Protoss on IM. He was on the come up, and he actually had this very famous early GSTL match against Boxer, where he hallucinated an immortal sentry all in, or something like that. And what he had actually done was hit in a third base. And this was very early on, like I'm thinking 2011 probably, but maybe early 2012. And basically it like blew Tasteless's mind, and like everybody remembered it ever since because it was such a clever move. It basically made Boxer turtle up, and then C just like macroed up and then destroyed Boxer later on. So that's kind of how Seed was always thought of, as this very thoughtful player who had his own like little tricks about him. And Seed was, for my money, the best player of that GSL. Probably should have won. And this is in season 3, so this is after the first miracle of MVP, and then MVP famously, I think he drops out pretty early here. Actually, to two of the best players at the time. So, or maybe no, I'm pretty sure he lost to Violet. So, never mind. But he loses to Tasia and then loses to Violet in the GSL Round of 16. But as for Seed's, there's a few things to know about Seed. First was he was a very smart Protoss player. Secondly, he was like one of the few players to really emphasize the immortal in late game CVP. Of course, this was before anybody really understood in Korea the impact of Infestor Broodlord, and this is important to note because Symbol had yet to truly embrace the patch Zerg within him until he plays Seed here. So I'll run a bit through Seed's run. He beats Curious twice to get out of Group A in a 32. He beats Tasia Violet to get into the playoffs, and then he plays Symbol, and this is his big series, and it basically changes Symbol's life forever. And so Symbol, before he became a patch Zerg, was a very lovable Zerg in his own way because he was playing that Mutaling, Baneling style we all love. Even when he went for the Infestors in CVP, he didn't go for the Broodlords. He actually went for that aggressive Ultralisk Ling style, which is way more fun to watch, but way worse. And so the two of them play this very drawn out macro game, and then Seed defeats him. And Seed basically sends Symbol into like a slump for a month before Symbol realizes, I was wrong. I need to become a patch Zerg just like Stefano and friends. Basically, that's kind of how I imagine it went down. And then in the semifinals, you see Beyond play. You see him play Beyond, and there's an interesting thing about Beyond. Is like he isn't really. I'm not sure where this idea comes from about him being like a naive innocent in a sense. This guy was always willing to do little cheeky things to win. Like in the Beyond versus Nestea games, basically they hosted on the wrong map, and so Beyond realized this. And back then, you could do a bunker contain 1111, and it was considered overpowered. So in order to counter that, map makers started putting like neutral supply depots at the bottom of ramps. Beyond realized they hosted on the wrong maps. Beyond didn't say anything. Beyond took advantage. Beyond 3-0'd Nestea. Now, there is a question as to whether or not Nestea would have beaten Beyond. I'm going to go ahead and guess not. Like, Nestea was very good, but I think even then, I think the way they collide, and even if you went into the late game, like I said, I think Nestea's late game was atrocious. So unless Nestea is able to win in the mid game, and I don't think Beyond would have necessarily lost to him in the mid game. Like that's like a 50-50. There are basically too many like objective victory conditions for Beyond to win that series, but it does, in a sense, show that Beyond was ruthless when he could be, or when he thinks he can get away with it. So next you have Seed versus Beyond, and Beyond by all rights should have been in this GSL finals, but the reason Seed was better was because Beyond was a choke artist. If you want, you can go watch Game 5. Basically, Beyond should... Was it Game 5? No, I think it was Game 4. Atlantis Space Bear spaceship. I mean, back then we called it Space Bear because if you look at the architecture, the map looks like a bear. So on this map, Beyond has certain victory in his grasp, and then Seed does the thing every Protoss did back in the day, and to an extent some Protosses still do to this day, is like, oh fuck, I am behind, what do I do? And then they look up to the light and they see Inca, and then Inca is telling them, make Dark Templar, it's your only hope. And then they make Dark Templar and hope to God it works. In this case it does work, because what Seed does is like, Beyond, because Beyond is super far ahead, so Seed drops the Dark Templar in Beyond's army and Beyond's base. And now Beyond has two choices. Beyond can either attack and win, or he can go back, defend, and then attack later and win. And he does neither of these choices. He actually hems and haws in the middle of the map. So eventually he decides, oh shit, I've wasted too much time just going back and forth. I'm just going to attack now because I've lost too much in my home. And he attacks, and then Seed just like slowly, step by step, like stalls out Beyond with force fields because there's no way you can break them, and you can't like go over them with speed vacs because they don't exist. So he just stalls out Beyond over and over and over again until Beyond's finally pushing on the doors. But by then, Seed has a much stronger army. Seed takes him out, and then Beyond is kind of like crushed for the rest of for the final game, and then is taken out. And that's basically the last you see of Beyond. Seed literally sends him into like how many years was it? Like a 5-year slump. Of course, part of that is of like Gerard is an asshole. Gerard stole his computer and sold it on eBay or some shit. And Beyond's like, I will never set foot out of this house ever again until you get into Legacy of the Swarm. So that is Beyond's unfortunate end to Wings of Liberty in a sense. And then Seed plays MC in the final. Seed crushes MC. Now MC, he's the other guy you have to talk about here. Actually, wait. I guess I'll finish out Seed's story arc because this is literally his story arc. And then in the middle of all this, Team IM goes to IPL Team Attack Cup or something like that in San Francisco, and basically Liquid has to win in their finals. They have to play against Liquid, and this was a double elimination team league format. So Liquid had to win 2 best of like 7s, or maybe it was best 9s or something crazy. But basically what happens is all of Team IM versus Tasia, and Tasia almost wins because he resets the first one, and he wins like 3 more before like Seed can finally take him out. And that's like another aspect about Seed was he was like the only player that could take out Tasia at the time in the foreigner area. Tasia himself would actually maybe he should have been in this GSL finals as well, like Beyond, except he runs to MC. And MC, stylistically speaking, he's a very aggressive Protoss player, like I said, very similar to Huck, but unlike Huck, he's able to adapt to the times, he's able to refine his builds, and he's able to expand his game. And this is a critical thing that MC is underrated for, and this is why I said everybody underrates MC is, yeah, he's very aggressive. Yes, he loves blink all-ins. Yes, he loves 1 base all-ins. Yes, he loves 2 base all-ins. Yes, he loves them 3 base all-ins as well. But if he had to, he could actually play a legitimate macro game, and he could play legitimate macro games behind the aggression. And that's something that's always been underrated about MC's play, but it's not something you actually see outside of PvT or PvP in 2012 because, PvZ, you got to go all in. I don't care what the hero fanatics say, you had to go all in. You had to take out the patch zerg before the patch zerg came online, so to speak. And even then, even if you did like massive damage, the patch zerg would still win. So the reason this is an important GSL for MC is because MC, this is like the only time I've ever seen him unconfident in his own abilities. Like he actually legitimately thought he wasn't that good the entire GSL way through, but he just kept winning over and over and over again. So like in Group A, he beats Sniper and Gonzi. In Group B, he beats Marine King and Squirtle. Then he beats Tasia, very surprising series to win. He beats Dongrigu in the semifinals, and then he loses straight out in the finals. And I forget if it was if it was this one or because there's like a home story cup he goes to in 2012, but it might have been a later home story cup. But basically, I'm gonna guess it's the 2012 one, right? So basically, after like MC loses here, he goes on like a world tour basically because he's on Team SK, which is like a European org. So they flew him out everywhere. He was our only sponsored player, and I think he gave them their money's worth because he kept getting pretty good results. But as like a showman, he was always up there. As a popular player, he was always up there. Like this is the time he gains the nickname like the Boss Toss because he's always so aggressive, so funny, so assertive in what he wants to do and how he wants to play. Like there's even like random stories that like made you be like, what is this? Like basically somebody had stolen a wallet from him in France and he chased the thief down and then brought him to justice or something crazy. And there's like all the karaoke songs he does at like Home Story Cup, all the dance moves and the Morlock dance at MLG, the Undertaker entrance at OSL. This guy was an entertainer. This guy was rightfully one of the most popular players in the world because he not only bring you the games, he bring you those out of game antics as well, and that's something that very few players can do. And MC was probably the one of the best at it. So that's MC, and the reason this year is so critical to MC is he understands like this home story cup I'm talking about. He starts realizing he is no longer the best player in the world. Like Rain is coming up. Seed had already beaten him. Then there's like a whole slew of Keswick players that are coming up. Tasia was being Tasia, right? And MVP that wasn't MVP that was like worrying him. It was like Life would soon come out and then a bunch of patch zergs. Basically, like I felt like another huge wave of talent was coming into the scene, and it was. And Ria's like the SK manager told him like, "What are you even complaining about? You're fucking you're fucking rich. Like just go play for money." And it's like, yes, I will do that. And like I said with MC's storyline, this was the guy who had started playing because he wanted that money to support his family. So in a sense, that lecture that Riaz kind of gives MC kind of like makes him less depressed about his placings and just lets him play his game. And maybe it had to do with that. Maybe it was just something within MC. He always had that killer mentality anyway. Maybe it was a bit of both. It's hard to say, right? But MC would continue on being a pretty good player throughout the rest of 2012 through the end of his career. And he basically like I said, his style was underrated in the sense he could do everything, but he was much more favored towards the aggressive side. And this becomes a critical point for not only him as a player, because the fact that he can do everything and he's so aggressive means he always had a shot to upset somebody else better than him, even if he wasn't going to necessarily win that tournament. It also gave him a shot against the Broodlord Infestor because, like I said, Broodlord Infestor, the only chance a Protoss should have is going all in against them. And MC was completely fine with that. And finally, because of his like great force field usage, his great blink stalker micro, he's able to like hang in with the rest, even though he wasn't necessarily the best. Like I think CJ Hero, I think Parting, those are the best blink stalker types. MC could still hang with them at times. And basically that's kind of like the rest of his story arc is just him traveling the world and doing better than people expect, or like getting round of 8s, getting 4th places, 3rd places, 2nd places. And I guess I'll talk about it a little bit now, but basically the fact that MC is such a diversive Protoss, like he can do so much. Actually, in a sense, he's the reason that MMA is able to rebuild himself, because MC was, in my opinion, the best Protoss outside of Korea during the WCS era of 2013 through 2015, where like it was WCS NA, EU, and then Korea, and like a bunch of Koreans had left the Korean scene. MC was among them. So was MMA, and MC was, I think he was the best in the sense that like yeah, you can say Hero was better as a player, but I think MC was the best in terms of how many builds he could play, and like the more standard builds he could play, and because of that, like it kind of because of his like constant battles with MMA in Europe, it kind of rebuilt MMA his like decision making because MMA style completely changes, and because the two of them play against each other so much, it really like helps MMA figure out his game, and that leads to MMA's like great return, so to speak. As for MC, he was always very aggressive, always in the mix. Like I don't think he ever drops out of top 10 Protoss contention for the entire time. And there are times, like for the rest of his career, basically from 2012 onwards, and there are times he's straight up in the top 5. So MC is very, very good player. And I think somebody who, somebody who really understood player mentality. That's how I'll put it. He understood how to like not necessarily get into their heads, but how players were thinking. And this obviously came about like because he actually had some kind of team house going on in Europe later on, and he goes on to coach in League of Legends. But yeah, that's MC, and I'm not gonna go through all of his fucking tournament results because he has a lot of them. But basically, MC is a consistent world warrior, and so this is just the baseline for you to understand. If I end up talking about MC, that he was a legit player. He wasn't a scrub because like that's kind of the narrative that goes around is like MC is fucking out because the Kespa guys are coming in. No, he was always competitive. He was always a good player. He's always good for an upset. He was always a threat for the rest of his career, and so that's Seed and MC part. That should end this part. See you guys later.